Well, Jerry, some years ago, 1982, an organization started here in Bozeman called the Men's Garden Club. Do you recall how that came to be?
Well, it was inspired by Ed Sedeby, who was a pretty serious gardener. He had Kagi
Kitchen Crops.
Kagi Kitchen Crops there on Kagi. There's a house there now as you drive, as you're climbing up Kagi towards...
it's right where the creek crosses the road, isn't it?
Just on the, I think it's on the east side of the creek.
Yeah.
And you'd go by there and you'd see Ed out there. He always had his bib overalls on and a big sombrero type straw hat. And a lot of times he'd be leaning on the hoe, but many times he'd be using the hoe. And he did employ some younger people to help him. And I think he sold some of those vegetables and probably gave a lot of them away. He was just an avid gardener. His son Ed Sedeby Jr. also had a garden, but he was never involved in the garden club. I suppose in 1982, so I was 34.
I think you were quite a bit younger than most of the members.
Yeah, I think I was probably one of the young. Steve Liebman would have been a younger member. I guess when I look at some of these, the older members on this list, I was certainly the younger one by some except for Steve Liebman. Those would be the only ones that would be. Well, to think of, I try to think of some of the names. Walter Mason, who was a retired minister, and I think he had been a missionary in South America or Central America.
Yeah, he had,
Yeah, and he had great insights and stories to tell. Earl Best grew his garden on Rouse, and I think he might have been the man that grew some gladiolas and sold them to people. His daughter was a photographer for the Bozeman Chronicle, and we would enlisted her support. It was easier to get the Chronicle to do things in those days. When if we had an Arbor Day planning or something, we could always get her to come and take a picture.
Oh, nice.
Dick Lund was, I don't remember him in the early years, but he certainly became active later on.
So I mean, his garden was one innovation on top of another.
Art Schellenberg, he lived on North 20th. He was an avid gardener.
So can you recall the early meetings and kind of what went on and what it was like?
I'm really a little fuzzy on a lot of the early meetings, but I remember they were in Milam's greenhouse. They're on North 7th. And Carl Reese. Carl Reese was one of the partners. Don Visser was one of the partners in Milam's greenhouse. And Carl Reese, and of course the Milams themselves, I know that they moved on, but we had them right there in the greenhouse. I do remember that there would be some kind of refreshments, maybe some cookies. And I think the first meetings that I remember was just educational things about seed varieties, fertilization, composting. Composting 40 years ago was really in its early stages. Composting wasn't practiced all that much. Maybe that's when it was getting started, but there was just all different types of topics to help people garden. And of course the idea was that from that core group of people that maybe that would spread. And not to say that it was the beginning of the Master Gardeners program or the Master Gardening program, but it kind of had a little inspiration there where members of the club would try to help other people with their gardening.
Good.
And some of them were growing just personal gardens. I think very few were selling any crops. And it was kind of a gathering of men that were interested in gardening.
And it was the Men's Garden Club back then.
It was the Men's Garden Club. Yeah, I know that Ed has probably been we can maybe criticize him in his absence now that he's not with us anymore, but he was somewhat criticized for it being only men. But there was the Women's Garden Club that was so much focused on flowers, and Ed, I don't think it was discriminatory on any part by Ed. He just thought, let's get a bunch of men together that are interested in growing vegetables.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. And it grew slowly. It didn't grow quickly. I don't remember where we went after Milam's, where our next meeting places were. We went somewhere else, obviously, because Milam's went away probably by 1990. I think the place was torn down.
Now, I know one thing you were instrumental in and a part of from the beginning was Arbor Day.
Yeah, we did Arbor Day plantings, all throughout. The first one I remember was the maple tree that we planted in what was called the Wally Byam Park, which is on the corner of College and 11th, the southwest corner of that intersection. I remember there was a half a dozen of us there, led by Ed Sedeby, that were there planting a maple tree there in that Wally Byam Park. That might have been the first one, but we went on from there and planted at schools. I know we planted at Hawthorne School. I don't remember any at Longfellow, but we did plant at Irving School, and I remember we planted on the north side of Irving School some fruit trees. I know we planted up at Hillcrest a memorial tree for Paul Brown.
So the Arbor Day continues through today.
Yeah, it's through
today. Didn't you plant at Gallatin High this past?
At the new high school we planted this year, and we had the preschool children there helping us in the planting. Many schools over the years, Chief Joseph, both Morning Star and
Emily Dickinson, Meadowlark.
All the different schools we've planted at, which involves, of course, these older members of the community with younger members of the community, so that they get a little connection together between the older and the younger, but also it's all centered on growing plants, trees for the future. And we take the older people with the younger people, and we make a good mix of it.
Well, that's just wonderful.
Yeah.
So another club tradition that's gone on for a long time has been the Christmas party. Do you have any recollections of that?
Well, I certainly remember. He made the cookies. Glenn Welch.
Glenn Welch,
Glenn Welch, he would make so many cookies. Of course, recently we've been meeting at we've been having it at the Story Mansion. We had it at Ferraro's Italian restaurant for a number of years there. That was really good. And prior to that, I know we had some potlucks, but I don't remember where we held them at.
I think it was, is it now a Catholic church, but it was a Lutheran church? Kind of a...
Hope Lutheran?
No. This is down by the Emerson.
Yeah, that was Hope Lutheran.
That was Hope Lutheran.
That was Hope Lutheran. Yeah, I think we did. We had it there in their basement. And
I think in the history we worked on, the men would get up early and cook the turkeys and hams, and then the potluck, and
people would bring additions to it. These successful gardens can be, I guess, the traditional, take a plot of land, maybe 20 by 30, and have a vegetable garden similar to my own or similar to Don Mathrie's. Or you can have a raised bed or two and a little piece along the side of your house, and it's a garden too. It doesn't have to be this big plot. It can be anything that grow. It can be just a little garden box.
But it makes people happy.
Yeah. And they feel successful and fulfilled in their agricultural endeavors.
Yeah.
And any of that we can pass on to people, I term the current society that we live in as agriculturally illiterate. And we get to visit with many new people that come here that talk about gardening. They've never done it before.
Yeah.
They just don't even know where to start.
Yeah, just have no tradition of it.
Yeah, but it's all part of the process, and that's why a garden club and people with experience, that's why we can pass that on. We can instill that our experience to them so that they can be successful. Well, the educational part of it, of course, once it really got going, and we'd have speakers, and speakers come in, that became very not only entertaining but enlightening for garden club members, so that someone from the university or even outside of the university, or just individuals talking about what they're doing, and with some slides or PowerPoint.
Yeah.
That's been very useful. I guess we've utilized some of the garden club members to come to give seminars for us.
Oh, sure,
at Cashman
yeah.
Nursery,
Yeah.
and also try to promote the garden club at the same time, which maybe encourages getting some new members.
Yeah, well, that's how I came to join the club. I came out here to hear Don Mathery give his vegetable talk.
Yeah.
Of course, he recruits you.
Yeah, but there's a guy that I'd like to learn more from. Yeah, talk about a public servant.
Yeah.
He's the epitome of a public servant.
Yeah, he's
unselfish and good for the community, and good for helping anyone try to grow. He's just a salt of the earth.
Yeah.
He and Judy both. Another aspect of what the garden club does is they're very generous with any proceeds, particularly since the gardens have been so successful and the sales at the farmers market. The garden club supports Montana Ag Live. They support the planting of the Arbor Day trees. I think they may even support a scholarship for horticulture students.
Two horticulture scholarships. School gardens.
Very
Eagle Mount. Oh my God! The list goes on and on.
Giving back to the community, and all of those garden club members that through their enthusiasm for growing and just their interest in plants, the produce that they produce, and then it's sold, and their time, which is enjoyment for them, but also giving to the community, and then all those dollars that are raised to go on to benefit lots of people in the community and throughout the state through the Montana Ag Live. That's when I get a chance, that's one of my favorite opportunities to watch that. And of course, Hayden Ferguson used to be the MC. Don has been. Jack Rieselman. Been a lot of great moderators or MCs of that through the years, but it's a great program for Montana. The Garden Club, well, it's a giving organization. People that are in tune to the soil and growing plants are generous people that like to share.
Yeah. That's
really the gist of it. They like to share what they have, the knowledge they have, and the produce that they have.
This is a gotcha question. Are you ever seen without your Felco pruners on your hip?
Not often.
Maybe at church?
Well, I do try to take it off at church now.
Okay.
It bothers my wife a little bit.
I don't know. I think that's one of your trademarks. So
they have 101 uses. One of my favorite ones is if you're having trouble starting your banana in the morning, you don't cut it all the way off. You just make a little incision and then it peels nicely.
Okay, so they're not just for pruning.
Well, you can use them as a screwdriver. You can even use them as a hammer a little bit. You just need to do a little tapping on something.
Okay. But now there. That's probably going to be the best part of this whole video. We got the insight on Jerry and the Felco pruners.